Awesome.
All right.
Woo!
Welcome, everyone. A couple people we got here. We are very excited to be kicking off our week of MDY Lives, MDY Virtual Camp, whatever you want to call it. We're here. We're live right now. If you're watching this later, it's not live. But we're here right now, and we are excited to have our National P7 Coordinator, Brother Seth Boyte, with us. And he's going to take some time, answer some questions about P7, whatever, and if there's any questions in the chat or things like that. We're going to record this session, and you can hit up P7 Clubs on Instagram or Facebook, or if you have any other questions, I'm sure he'll let us know where to find him. But first things first, tell us about what P7 is, Brother Seth.
Oh man, I'm so glad to be here, hanging out with you guys. Thanks for having me. I believe in the youth of Michigan. I believe that there's gonna be some awesome things happening with P7 this year. If you're wondering what P7 is, never heard of P7, let me just break it down. Project 7, we call them P7 clubs because it's just easier to say P7 clubs than Project 7 Bible clubs. It's a little bit of a little too much there. But P7 clubs, really what Project 7 is it's a free resource for students to use for the purpose of starting Bible clubs on your high school and middle school campuses. So the lane that we have is middle school and high school. Sometimes students can be in fifth grade or maybe your middle school starts at seventh grade. But for us, the general age demographic is sixth grade to 12th grade. And one of the reasons that Project 7 has its name, if you ever wondered why is it called Project 7, I'll answer that for you. We believe that the greatest project that a student could work on, because you work on a lot of projects between middle school and high school, especially in high school, you work on a ton of projects. But we believe one of the greatest projects that you could ever work on is a project that leads to completion in Christ. And that's during the 7 years of middle school and high school, between 6th to 12th grade. During that time slot, we believe one of the greatest projects you could ever work on is completion in Christ. So all across North America, the United States and Canada, we're seeing these Project 7 clubs that are starting up, and it's not like you have to be like a pastor and you preach and you have this full-on church. No, it's a little less pressure than that. It's an after-school club or before-school club or during lunch club where you get together, you talk about Jesus, you have a good time, play some games, eat some food, hang out. And we've seen this is so much more than just a fun after-school club. This is so much more than that. That's really the funnel, we like to call it, of getting people in community with one another. And once you see people in your school that are interested in Jesus or have a connection to the things of God, or maybe they're not even interested in the things of God, they're just interested in pizza. That's totally okay. And so we're seeing these clubs start, and people come together on a weekly basis, and they talk about Jesus, and we're seeing lives transformed all over the United States, all over Canada. And they have one thing in common. It's someone had a burden to start making disciples in their school. And Project 7 is not the only way to make disciples. I'm not so arrogant to think that. But I do believe it's one of the most methodical and strategic ways that you can make disciples in your school, because honestly, we've all got the same mission that Jesus gave us, right? To make disciples. He gave us that mission. So because we've all got that same mission, middle school and high school students that are watching this, you've got the same mission that I do. You just have a unique opportunity that you're surrounded by kids on a daily basis. Now, we'll get into this a little bit later. I know school this fall semester is going to be a little bit wonky depending on where you're from. But you have the opportunity, you have the call of God on your life to make disciples. If you're asking yourself, is it God's will for me to make disciples? The answer to that question is yes. That's not up for debate. That's not up for discussion. You have a call of God in your life to make disciples. The choice that you have to make is, number one, am I going to answer that call? Number two, how am I going to answer that call? And I believe personally that one of the best ways to answer that call is to start a Project 7 club in your school. So that helps, if that helps a little bit to answer what is a Project 7 club. That's kind of the what is of Project 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of touched on it, but I think the pressing question in everybody's mind is right now is like, okay, we're not going to be able to meet in groups this year.
What are we going to do?
What are we going to do about it? And
Yes.
so I'm sure that's something that over at P7 headquarters, you guys have brainstormed, which is probably that office and
right here, you're looking at it. P7 headquarters right here in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Worldwide headquarters for P7. Talk us through some of the brainstorming and some ideas that you guys have thrown out or heard that people are already doing for P7 clubs this fall or into spring, since we don't know when we're going to be able to meet in big groups again.
Yes. I'm gonna answer this question, and I'm gonna circle around something that's gonna be like a little off topic, but I'm gonna get back to it. And
go for it.
This past weekend, I spent the weekend in Milwaukee, just my wife and I, and we just wanted to spend some time away. She's pregnant with our first child in October, so we wanted some time away. Yeah, thank you. So we just wanted some time to just kind of relax. We had a couple of unique experiences with restaurants. A couple of them were like horrendous, really, really bad. And I feel like it was all under the guise of like, oh, COVID's been really challenging to us. And so I was gracious. I didn't cause a scene. I was like, food was terrible. The service was terrible. We just moved on. But then there's another couple of restaurants that we went to, and I was like, oh my goodness, this was an incredible meal. The service was amazing. The food was amazing. Overall, these people have like responded really well to a lot of barriers and challenges. And I was thinking about this today when I knew that I was going to be speaking here tonight. Those restaurants all have the same unique barriers and challenges. They all have the same. They all went through the same thing. They were all restaurants, BC, before COVID, and they're all restaurants now. But some of them decided we're going to have a really bad experience for our customers, and we're going to blame it on COVID. And in fact, some restaurants just said, we're done. We can't survive. We're just going to be out. We're not going to. So there's a couple places that I want to go to get some coffee, and they didn't exist anymore, which is really sad to me. And so we got three opportunities. Number one, we're just going to shut down. We're not going to have a restaurant. Number two, we're going to have a restaurant, but it's going to be really bad. And we're not even going to try. And we're going to say, it's because of COVID. Or number three, we've got all these unique barriers and challenges that we're facing, but in spite of that, we're still going to have an amazing experience. And as frustrated as I was with those restaurants, Milwaukee redeemed itself because I had amazing time. And I begin to think we've got the same exact opportunity with Project 7. Option one, we can say, you know what, COVID's just hard and we're not going to have a P7 club. We're not meeting in person, so we're just not going to have a P7 club. Or number two, we're going to have P7, but we're really not going to try. We're not going to make it fun. We're not going to do anything exciting. And it's just going to be mediocre, and we'll call it religious persecution. Or there's, I'm shaking that tree real hard right now. Cause I think sometimes we're just going to be like weird and not organized. And we're just going to say, oh, it was the enemy that was trying. No, you just weren't organized. You didn't plan anything. Or option number three, we are going to have an amazing Project 7 club in spite of the unique barriers and challenges that we face right now. So I believe it is my personal belief this year that we're going to have a lot of clubs that choose option door number three, and we're going to have an awesome P7 club. I want to talk to you about what that looks like. So a lot of clubs, I get it. I totally understand. School looks different this year. I get it. Say it with me. School looks different this year. But here's my question. Here's my question for you. Do we still have a call from God to make disciples or not?
Yes.
Crickets. I can't make the cricket sound. do we still have a call of God to make disciples or not? The answer to that question is yes. And so the easy excuse, the easy like boom, here's my excuse, here it is COVID, right? Oh, I'm just not going to have a P7 club, because COVID. That's the easy excuse. And the enemy would love nothing more than to hand you this perfectly crafted excuse named COVID to say, well, you don't really need to try this year because COVID. I'm going to shake that tree hard right now. All right. And between now and the next couple months, you may see some like hyped up videos of me in P7 headquarters here, like screaming this and like pounding this in. Like, that's the easy excuse that the enemy wants to give you. COVID, you don't need to try this year. You don't need to try to reach your friends this year. You don't need to try to just, let God work in your school this year because COVID. So I'm hyped up for a reason. I'm thought about this a lot. So let me step down here a little bit. The reason that I'm so fired up is because I don't want you to miss an opportunity to change your school's trajectory, to change the trajectory of someone's life in your school. Don't miss an opportunity just because you're online this year. So I don't know how it's like in Michigan, but here in Wisconsin, there are some schools that are meeting in person. There are some schools that are meeting all virtual, and there are some schools that are doing this weird hybrid. We're going to test it out and see what happens, kind of thought process. I truly do believe that no matter what happens over the next 4 to 8 weeks, some schools are going to change, and it's going to be like we're going to go back to in person, or we're shutting her down again, and we're all back at home. All right. My desire is that Project 7 clubs all over Michigan and all over North America decide in their heart, no matter what happens this year, we're going to meet. We're going to have a P7 club. So on a practical level, on a logistical level, now that I'm off of my soapbox, we really encourage clubs this semester, especially the ones that are meeting for school online. We encourage you to meet online. Do exactly what we're doing right now. It's really easy to start a P7 club online. You know why? Because you have no barriers from the school. You don't need your school's permission to start a P7 club online. That's something that we work with students all over North America every single year. We've got DMs that are just like coming in on the regular, like, hey, my school said this. What do I say? We work with students one-on-one all the time. And the one of the biggest questions that we get is, my school said no, now what do I do? Well, another question we get a lot is, I'm a homeschool student, what do I do? Well, we've collectively answered all of this like in one really easy answer. You start a virtual P7 club. Done. Mic drop. We could end this right now. So you start a virtual P7 club. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you go to Zoom. Go to zoom.us. Is it zoom.us? I think it's zoom.us. Zoom.com. I think whatever. Go type in Google Zoom and it'll come up. I promise. Start a free account. It's really easy. I promise. If you're watching here and you're a middle school or high school student, I promise you'll figure it out. If I figure it out, I guarantee you can figure it out. And so here's I will say this. With Zoom, with a free account, you get 40 minutes. So you got to be in and out in 40 minutes because I will shut you down at 40 minutes. And so if you don't have much to say, great. If you have a lot to say, keep it under 40 minutes. And honestly, P7 clubs, 40 minutes may be a good time slot anyway. Because if you're meeting for an hour and a half, 2 hours, people are going to get bored. They're going to get kind of antsy to leave, and they're going to be wondering, I don't know if I want to come back next week. They knit for 3 hours, and I just don't know that I can commit to that every week. All right. So the mission statement of Project 7 hasn't changed. It's still to unlock faith, to unleash truth, to elevate Christ, and to serve others. We're just going to be doing it a little bit different this year. And so if you are meeting in person for school, awesome. I encourage you to start a Project 7 club in person at school. Awesome. If your school says, we're not having school, start an online club. And you can actually, we've seen some clubs that have already done this and have done a really, really great job by meeting on Zoom. Another one that I've seen is House Party. It's an app that all the new kids are using. I haven't used House Party a ton. I know I get notifications like all day from it, but I never never log in. We've seen students use Skype. We've seen students even use their Instagram. If you've got a P7 Instagram for your club, just going live and teaching right from your P7. The only thing I'll say about that is, just from experience, we run a national account, and sometimes to get people to comment, like we've got a bunch of followers. We got over 10,000 followers, and it's still hard to get people to comment. So if your P7 club has 20, it might be a little difficult to get people to comment. So it might be just you talking for a while. So if you're cool with that, you like the sound of your voice, perfect setting for that. But if you want to do some interactive things, I encourage you to use a program like Zoom or House Party to get everyone involved, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like in a really big nutshell, like here's how to start a P7 club online. Like maybe that was too big of an answer. I don't know. But we encourage students to start online P7 clubs if their school is all virtual. And if you're meeting in person, continue to have, in-person meetings. Does that answer the question? Is that too much?
No, that's perfect. I think no matter what the answer is, if you can't do it in person, do it online.
Yes.
Simple enough.
We just want you to have a P7 club. Like,
yeah,
meet.
Do it.
You meet as P7. Either way.
So we got the simple answer of what? Like, we can do it online. It's easy to set up the Zoom. What do you say to a student who's like, okay, like I understand that I can do this, but I don't think I can do it. Like the student who's nervous, who's scared, who has anxiety about teaching in front of people, who's never, maybe they're the only Christian in their school, the only apostolic in their school. Like, how do we empower that student?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I get it. It can be, for some, like being behind a computer screen, you're not in person, is actually a little empowering, because they're not in front of people. But some, it's like the other way around. Like I can talk all day long in front of people, but put me in front of a camera, I get weird. I totally understand that. But it comes out of the same heart, and the heart is to please God and to further His kingdom in the school. And so if you're wondering, maybe you're scared, like, I don't know how I can do this, how I can, actually do this. Do I have the power? I believe very strongly that if you tell God, God, I'm a willing vessel. I'm asking you to empower me, equip me to lead this, give me favor with the school. If you pray these things, I believe that God will answer that. And I also want to circle back to I haven't said it yet on this call yet, but Project 7 has never been a numbers game. It's never been about how many people you can get into your P7 club. We celebrate, really awesome things, just like we do with churches. When there's a P7 club that's like running over 100, we're going to celebrate that because that's pretty intense. But we also celebrate the P7 clubs that have 2, because it's never a numbers game. And so if you're wondering, can I lead a P7 club? Here's another question I want to ask. Can you make a friend? Because if you can make a friend, Brother Gleason said it this way. Stan Gleason said, if you can make a friend, you can make a disciple. P7 clubs is all about making disciples. And so if you can get together with 2 or 3 people over Zoom and talk about some scriptures and how they apply to your life, it's literally that simple. Now, you can certainly do some things to spice it up and have fun with it. Play some Zoom games. Say, you're in an area where you are meeting in person. Maybe the school is not meeting in person, but maybe you want to meet with your P7 club at Starbucks or something. Do something to switch it up and engage your P7 club. Don't just like, hey, I'm gonna read a scripture and then we're gonna dismiss. Make it engaging, make it fun. And I promise, I've seen students come out of their shell because they started a P7 club. It can be a little bit overwhelming. I totally understand that. But we've got to ask ourselves, is God strong enough and powerful enough to help me to be what I think that I should be, but I'm not there yet? I think there's a lot of students out there that know that God has called them already to start a P7 club. So me saying that is not like, oh, whoa, God's already put it on your heart. You already know that God wants you to start a P7 club. Now it's just, is he strong enough? Is he able enough to give me the courage that I need to do something that I know he's already called me to do? So I believe the answer to that question is yes. God is strong enough. He is able enough to do that. And so I believe he's going to empower you to do that.
So good. So we got the P7 club set up. We have invited some people. We have a meeting scheduled. What am I supposed to teach? How do I promote? Where, like, are there resources available for me? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Good. If you're all by yourself, you're all alone, you have no help, no resources. Just kidding. Over the last few years, Project 7, I've not always been the director, so I can say this and not like pat on my back. Project 7 has done a very good job in resourcing students and eliminating barriers. One of the barriers that students have expressed in the past was, I don't know what to teach. I get in front of someone, what do I say? What do we do? I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher. We're not asking you to be a pastor, we're not asking you to be a preacher. So because of that, we have provided resources right at p7clubs.com to teach lessons. And we've got over 100 lessons on our website for free. You don't have to buy them. All you got to do is download them, study them, and you can teach them right to your P7 club. If you're wondering, how do I put together a thought? How do I put together, a sermon every single week? Don't stress about it. Download 4 lessons off our website. Guess what? You got the whole month ready to go. Sometimes they're even in like series. You know how like your youth pastor does series sometimes? There's even P7 series that you can download. And guess what? You can even take credit for it. We won't even ask you to give us credit. If someone says, man, that was a really great thought today, you know what you say? Thank you. That's all you got to say. We're here to empower you as the P7 leader, to put things, tools and resources in your hands so that you can lead a P7 club effectively. And so if there's ever something that you're looking for, maybe it's a topic or a lesson that you'd like from us, DM us. We'll I can't promise it that day, but we'll resource you. I promise.
You'll put something together in P7 World Headquarters.
That's right. We'll do something to make it happen. And so there's tons of stuff right at p7clubs.com. There's resources that you can use for promotional items. Sometimes we get asked, okay, I run a P7 club. We've got an Instagram. What do I post on our Instagram? Guess what? We got you covered. We have even COVID related posts we have available for you. And it's free. And you don't have to even give us credit. We've designed them for you so that you can post them. Stuff like, hey, P7's tomorrow, or P7's canceled, or doesn't quarantine stink? We don't have a post like that, but we should though. But we've got posts available so you can post on your Instagram too. So there's tons of resources on our website. Just browse our website, and if there's something that you need, let us know. Because again, this is all about helping you to run an effective P7 club.
Awesome. So I made it through my 7 years. I'm graduating. How do I transition my P7 club to somebody else?
Oh man, that's such a great question. So we get this question a lot, and in an ideal, perfect world, there would be another younger apostolic that's at your school with you, that you can transition that club to. If there's no other apostolic in your club and you can't trust anyone else to take that over when you're gone, sometimes it's better to let something die than it is to try to keep it alive and it's really, really bad or improper, or someone's teaching something that they shouldn't be teaching. And so I'll just say that, take that with a grain of salt. But in a perfect world where you got someone else that's younger than you in that same school, that last semester, that spring semester, you really want to work on that transition right away. Because what you don't want to happen is you to be the guy or the girl and you teach every lesson and you rally the troops and you bring all the snacks and you lead all the games and you do everything, and everyone else just kind of sits there and watches your show. That's not what you want, because what happens then is the summer happens and then that club starts up again and they're like, oh, well, he's not there, so what's going to happen? And so you want to start empowering other people in your club, if there's other apostolics in your club or even other non-apostolics in your club, to start to lead some things, like lead a game or bring a snack or take attendance or do something. It's kind of like a mini youth group. Get people involved in your club so it's not just you running the show. That way, especially in that last semester, that new person that's going to be taking over in the future can start to teach, or you can have a good rotation of teachers, so that's not one person doing everything. That way, in the fall semester when it starts up again, people are used to teaching, they're used to running a P7 club without you. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. So start the transition before you have to transition, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
So as the P7 national coordinator, you probably talk about P7 a lot all the time. What's something about P7 people should ask or should ask you, but rarely ask? What's something that people sort of overlook with P7?
Well, I think something that's commonly overlooked is I'm going to sound real carnal when I say this, but it's the carnal things sometimes that people don't think of. And what I mean by carnal is not very carnal. It's not carnal, but it seems unspiritual. All right. So things that are really important to P7 that are unspiritual. Number one, food. Number two, the environment. Okay, so I've been into some P7 clubs before, and I'll be honest, some of them are awesome, some of them are awful. And here's what makes the awesome ones awesome. You walk in, let me just paint a picture for you. You walk in, people are kind of already talking, it's kind of fun, someone's laughing over in the corner, hey, there's food, awesome, yeah, come on in. There's music playing in the background. It's like this hyped environment. It's really awesome. Okay, guys, let's bring it all together. Let's sit down and have our lesson. Awesome. Someone is leading, with a strong personality that is, taking charge and saying, here's what's happening. And then awesome. There's a lesson. We talk about it. We pray. We dismiss and we get up and people are still talking and it's a fun environment. Music's playing again. Eating some leftover donuts. But here's what happens when you don't do any of those things. You walk into a classroom, everyone's sitting awkwardly staring at each other. It's dead quiet. There's no food. Not really sure, is this the right room or is this study hall? I can't really tell if it's study hall or P7. And someone awkwardly grabs their paper and reads their lesson. You see how all of these things that I'm saying aren't spiritual? We overlook some of the just natural environmental things. Mm-hmm. And we miss the opportunity to connect with people. I may shake the tree with this statement here, but for some people, the most important part of Project 7 may not be your lesson. It may be that 3 or 4 minutes connecting with someone before or after that makes them come back. You could give the most great, well-worded, perfect P7 lesson ever, but if you don't connect with anyone before and after, it's not effective. And when I mean connect, I'm not saying hey, how can I pray for you today? I mean hey, how was math today? How was that science quiz yesterday? I think I totally bombed it. Having real connections with people seems super, super unspiritual for the super spiritual people, okay? I guess maybe I'm not one of those. But you can just work on the environment, have some music playing, have some food playing, have some music playing. Yeah, the food, clap with that, I guess, I don't know. Have some food ready and then talk to people. Make it a fun environment. That's what a lot of people fail to do sometimes with Project 7. And guess what? You can do the same thing online. All right. You can make P7 a fun environment. And so as people are logging into Zoom, be asking questions. There's an incredible young man named Imani Nangoma. He led a P7 club in Canada, I believe it was Ontario. and he invited me to, he led a P7 club, but he also hosted a P7 leaders. I believe it was a Zoom, but people just called in, and he wanted me to speak on it one night. And for like 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes, every person that got on the call, he was like, "Hey, Charlie, what's going on? How did that quiz go yesterday? Hey, Molly, thanks for joining tonight. We were talking last week about your English class. How's that going?" And every single person that joined on the call, he had a personal relationship with, and he asked them something specific about their life that he remembered from last week. I don't know if he wrote it down or he just has a great memory, but that's something that you can do that is going to take your P7 club, especially online, to the next level. Develop relationships with people where you can have real connections, because when you have real connections with people, even if it's connecting over something as silly as a lunch, oh man, that lunch was great, or is terrible, whatever it was, we develop that connection, and now we can talk about other things, and we keep developing that connection. Then that person's going to say, "Man, can you pray for me? My parents are going through a divorce right now." Boom, that would have never existed had you not had a connection with them. And so asking personal questions with people, like, "Hey, what's going on in your world? Tell me about something that's happening. How's online schooling going for you? Oh, it's terrible for me, but here's what sharing tips. And so you can do this online too. You can make it fun. You can play games with people, especially if you're meeting online. I encourage you to play at least one game to have some sort of icebreaker, so that it's not like, listen to me teach. You should be so impressed by my lesson and what it's not about me. That's about everyone and connecting them to Jesus. So if we can start that process by having a fun environment, I think that's something that is tremendously overlooked by P7 leaders.
So good. So I'm glad I asked.
There you go.
Yeah, I think churches probably fall into that, or are guilty of that too.
Absolutely. We don't like to talk about that though.
Yeah. The awkward, quiet pre-services and tiptoe into your seat.
If I'm a new person walking into this like weird environment where I'm not really sure what's happening, am I in the right place or what's going on here?
So good. So I think, unless is there anything else we may have missed of starting a P7, getting it up and running, sort of through the 7 years?
Good information. Yeah. And if you have any other questions, or you think of something, DMs are always open. Feel free to DM us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you're still on there. And we'll get back to you. Twitter, it might take a few weeks, but we'll get back to you eventually. No, I'm kidding.
You're at what's your handle?
At P7 Clubs.
Cool. And P7clubs.com.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining with us tonight. Looks like brother Kyle Fair may have joined on late last minute. Thanks for being with us, Brother Seth, and
absolutely
look forward to hearing awesome testimonies from Michigan.
Awesome. Woo!